I still remember the weight of that coffee tray in my hands. 23 years old, first day at Henderson Associates, and my fingers were already trembling. Not from nerves, from rage I had to swallow down like poison. Careful with that, rookie, Marcus sneered from his corner office doorway. We don't pay interns to redecorate our suits with cappuccinos. The others laughed. Sarah from accounting actually snorted into her computer screen. I kept my face blank, neutral, empty. I'd learned that skill young, how to hide everything burning inside you behind a mask of polite compliance. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like the video and watch till the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That morning smelled like expensive cologne and cheaper ambition. The office had that corporate smell, recycled air, fresh paint over old problems, and the faint metallic tang of desperation that clings to people climbing ladders that go nowhere. I set down Marcus's latte, made exactly how he liked it, extra hot, 2 pumps vanilla, foam so perfect it could have been in a magazine. He didn't even look at me. The Henderson report needs copying, he said, waving one hand dismissively while scrolling through his phone with the other. 50 copies. Collated. And Emma? I paused at his door. Yes. Try not to jam the copier this time. Maintenance is still annoyed about yesterday. More laughter. Jennifer from HR covered her mouth, but her eyes were cruel with amusement. I'd jammed the copier once. Once. On my literal first day. And they'd turned it into my identity. Emma the copier girl. Emma the coffee intern. Emma the mistake. What none of them knew, what I couldn't tell them, was that the man who owned this building, who signed their paychecks, who held their careers in his calloused hands, was watching from the 32nd floor. My uncle. Robert Henderson. And he'd made me promise not to tell a single soul. The copying room was small and windowless. I stood there while the machine hummed and clunked, spitting out page after page, and I let myself feel it. The humiliation. The anger. The bone-deep determination that made my jaw ache from clenching. I was 23 with a double major in business and finance. I'd graduated top of my class. I spoke 3 languages. I'd won awards. And here I was, being mocked for coffee temperatures and copier jams by people who peaked in middle management. But Uncle Robert's instructions had been crystal clear. You want to run a company someday, Emma? Then you need to understand it from the bottom up. Every rung. Every humiliation. Every petty tyrant who thinks their title makes them important. I'm putting you in as an intern. You'll work harder than anyone. You'll be invisible. And when the time comes, you'll show them exactly what you're made of. I'd agreed because I trusted him. Because he'd built Henderson Associates from nothing, from a one-room office and a dream into a $100 million consulting firm. Because he was the only family member who believed in me when my own parents said business was for men and I should find a nice husband instead. The copier jammed. Of course it did. I spent 20 minutes unjamming it, getting toner on my white blouse, the only professional one I owned that didn't have a stain or loose thread. When I finally delivered the reports to Marcus, he fanned through them like a Vegas dealer checking cards. These are out of order, he said flatly. They weren't. I'd checked 3 times. I can redo them, no time. I need them in 10 minutes. He shoved the stack back at me. Try to get it right this time, yeah? I redid them. They were identical to the first set. He accepted them without comment, without apology, without even basic human acknowledgement. That was day 1. Day 5, Sarah accidentally spilled an entire iced coffee on my desk, soaking the notes I'd been working on for hours. She apologized with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and walked away before I could even respond. Day 12, Marcus took credit for my entire market analysis report in a meeting I wasn't invited to. I only found out because Jennifer mentioned it in the break room. saying how surprisingly insightful Marcus had been lately. Day 21, they started calling me Intern Emma even though I had a name placard on my desk. As if I wasn't a real person. Just a temporary position. A placeholder. I smiled through it all. I arrived earlier than anyone else, 6 in the morning, when the building was still dark and hollow-sounding. I stayed later, until 8 or 9 at night, until my eyes burned and my back ached. I studied every file I could access. I memorized client names, project details, financial patterns. I learned who was competent and who was coasting. Who actually worked and who just looked busy. Marcus was a coaster. He delegated everything, took credit for the good outcomes, and blamed his team for the bad ones. He'd been with the company 7 years and hadn't had an original idea in at least 5. Sarah was cruel but efficient. She enjoyed making people feel small, but she got results. Her accounting was flawless, even if her humanity was questionable. Jennifer in HR was a gossip and a snake. She collected secrets like some people collect stamps, and she used them strategically. She'd torpedoed at least 3 careers that I knew of, all while maintaining that sweet, concerned expression she wore like a mask. David in operations was actually decent. He nodded at me in the mornings. Once, he even asked if I was okay when he found me alone in the break room, staring at nothing, trying not to cry from exhaustion and frustration. "This place can be rough," he'd said quietly. "Especially for new people. Don't let them break you." I'd thanked him. I didn't tell him they couldn't break what was already forged in fire. The worst day was day 33. I'd been working on a proposal for a potential client, a huge account worth millions. I'd done it on my own time, staying until midnight 3 nights in a row, barely sleeping, running on coffee and spite. The proposal was brilliant. I knew it was brilliant. It outlined strategies Henderson Associates had never tried before, innovative approaches that could revolutionize how we handled mid-sized tech companies. I'd left it on Marcus's desk with a note, "Thought this might interest you for the Patterson pitch. Let me know if you'd like me to develop it further." The next morning, Marcus called a team meeting. He stood at the head of the conference table, looking confident and self-satisfied, and presented my proposal word for word. Every idea. Every strategy. Every carefully researched statistic. He'd even kept my formatting. "I think this approach could really set us apart," he said, clicking through the slides I'd designed. "I've been working on this concept for weeks." My hands went numb. Sarah actually applauded. Jennifer beamed at him like a proud mother. Even David looked impressed, though he threw me a curious glance across the table. I said nothing. What could I say? That he'd stolen my work? Who would believe the intern over the senior consultant? I had no proof. No witnesses. Nothing but my own word against his, and in this office, my word was worth less than nothing. After the meeting, Marcus actually stopped by my desk. "Good coffee this morning, Intern Emma," he said with a smile that made my skin crawl. "Keep up the good work." That night, I sat in my apartment, a tiny studio that smelled like the Indian restaurant downstairs, and I cried. Not sad tears. Angry ones. The kind that burn coming out, that taste like salt and fury. My phone rang. "Uncle Robert." "How's it going?" he asked, his voice warm and gravelly. I wanted to tell him everything. Every humiliation, every theft, every moment of casual cruelty. But I'd promised to do this on my own terms, to earn my place rather than have it handed to me. "It's going," I said carefully. "Learning a lot." "Learning what, specifically?" I looked at my reflection in the dark window, exhausted, toner-stained, still wearing the blouse from 16 hours ago. "I'm learning exactly who deserves to lead and who's just taking up space." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Good. That's exactly what you need to learn. Keep going, Emma. Trust the process." I trusted him. But some nights, trust felt like the heaviest weight I'd ever carried. Week 7 brought a new humiliation. The company softball game. Mandatory fun, they called it. Everyone was required to attend, to show team spirit, to pretend we were a family instead of a collection of people who'd sell each other out for a corner office and a parking space. I'm terrible at sports. Always have been. But I showed up in borrowed athletic clothes, ready to participate, ready to be a team player. Marcus made me team mascot. You can't really hurt anything from the sidelines, he said, laughing. Just cheer for us, yeah? I spent 3 hours in 90-degree heat, wearing a ridiculous foam finger, cheering for people who wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. Jennifer took photos. Sarah posted them on the company social media with a caption about team spirit and everyone contributing in their own way. The photos made me look ridiculous. Desperate. Pathetic. David hit a home run and jogged past me on his way to the dugout. You okay? He asked quietly. Fine, I lied. You're a better person than me, he said. I would have walked out after week 1. Maybe I should have. Maybe staying was stupid. But I'd promised Uncle Robert. And more than that, I'd promised myself. I was going to see this through. I was going to prove something, not to them, but to me. That I could endure. That I was stronger than their cruelty. That when my moment came, I'd be ready. Week 9, I figured out what Marcus was really doing. I'd arrived at 5:30 in the morning, earlier than usual because I couldn't sleep. The office was dead silent except for the hum of computers in sleep mode. I made coffee in the break room, and that's when I heard Marcus's voice drifting from his office. He was on the phone. Yeah, it's Henderson's niece, he was saying, voice low and smug. Little Emma. Robert asked me personally to keep an eye on her, make sure she learns the ropes. I've been giving her the full intern experience, coffee runs, copying, the works. Character building, you know? My blood turned to ice water. He knew. Marcus knew who I was. He'd known from day 1. Robert wants her to understand the business from the ground up, Marcus continued. So I'm making sure she gets the authentic entry-level experience. She'll thank me later. Hell, we'll probably laugh about this at some executive retreat in 5 years. I stood frozen in the break room, coffee pot in hand, barely breathing. He thought he was helping me. He thought the humiliation, the stolen work, the casual cruelty, he thought it was all character building. He thought Uncle Robert had asked him to mentor me through degradation. Or, and this thought hit me like a physical blow, he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew I was Robert Henderson's niece, and he was systematically destroying my confidence, stealing my work, and ensuring I'd never be a threat to him. Because if I left broken and defeated, I'd never come back to challenge his position. I set down the coffee pot very carefully. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. Marcus appeared in the break room doorway, phone still in hand. He startled when he saw me. Emma. You're here early. Couldn't sleep, I said, keeping my voice light, casual. Wanted to get a head start on the Brennan files. His eyes narrowed slightly, calculating. Wondering if I'd heard. That's dedication, he said slowly. That's exactly the kind of attitude that gets people ahead in this business. I smiled. It felt like glass in my face. Just trying to learn as much as I can. Well, keep it up. Robert and Mr. Henderson, he notices hard work. Even at the intern level. Especially at the intern level, I thought. Because he's been watching this whole time, and you have no idea what kind of report I've been compiling in my head. Marcus left. I stood in the break room, listening to my own heartbeat, feeling something cold and sharp crystallize in my chest. He knew. The whole time, he'd known. And he'd chosen cruelty anyway. That changed everything. I went back to my desk and opened a new document. I started typing. Every incident. Every stolen idea. Every casual humiliation. I documented it all with dates, times, witnesses when available. I outlined Marcus's pattern of taking credit for others' work, not just mine, but David's too, I realized. And probably others who'd come before me. I documented Sarah's deliberate sabotage, Jennifer's gossip weaponization, the entire toxic culture that had infected this floor like mold behind expensive wallpaper. And then I kept working. Kept arriving early. Kept staying late. Kept being invisible, helpful, forgettable intern Emma. But now I was watching them the way they'd never thought to watch me. Week 11 brought the Patterson pitch, the huge tech account worth $12 million in consulting fees. Marcus was leading the presentation, using the proposal he'd stolen from me. The morning of the pitch, I arrived at 4 a.m. I had keys to the building now. Uncle Robert had arranged it quietly, through channels Marcus didn't know about. I went to the conference room where the presentation was set up and I didn't sabotage anything. That would have been too obvious, too crude. Instead, I added slides. Supplementary material. Additional research that happened to expose some of the logical flaws in the original proposal, flaws I'd deliberately left in because I'd suspected Marcus might steal it. The original plan I'd left on his desk was good but incomplete. The complete version, the one I'd kept to myself, was brilliant. And now it was hidden in the presentation file, set to appear only if someone clicked through past the main slides. Marcus never checked. He was too confident, too certain of his superiority. The Patterson executives arrived at 9. I served coffee. I was invisible. Just intern Emma, making sure the cups were full and the room was comfortable. Marcus started his presentation. He was smooth, confident, using my words like they'd always been his. The executives looked interested but not impressed. Then one of them, a sharp-eyed woman named Teresa Chen, stopped him. "These projected ROI figures seem optimistic," she said. "What's your methodology?" Marcus fumbled. He didn't know. Because I'd done that research, and he hadn't bothered to understand it. "I can pull up the supporting data," he said, clicking through slides. That's when he found my additions. Slides he'd never seen before. Research he didn't understand. Methodologies he couldn't explain. His face went pale. Then red. Then pale again. "I'm sorry," he stammered. "There seems to be some additional material here that must have been added by mistake." Teresa Chen's expression went from interested to skeptical. "You don't know what's in your own presentation?" The meeting deteriorated from there. Marcus tried to recover, but he was floundering, contradicting himself, making promises he couldn't back up with data. The Patterson executives left unimpressed, promising to consider their options. After they left, Marcus stood in the conference room, hands on the table, breathing hard. I was collecting coffee cups. "Who added those slides?" he asked, voice dangerous. "I don't know," I said quietly. "I'm just the intern." His eyes locked on mine. For the first time, I saw real fear there. Uncertainty. The dawning realization that maybe, possibly, he'd underestimated something. "Someone sabotaged me," he said. "Or maybe someone was trying to help," I suggested softly. "That additional research was solid. If you'd known about it, you could have used it to answer her questions." He stared at me. Trying to read me. Trying to figure out if I was really this naive or if something else was happening. "Get out," he finally said. I left with my tray of dirty cups, and I didn't let myself smile until I was alone in the break room. First blood. That afternoon, Uncle Robert called Marcus to his office. I didn't know what was said, but when Marcus came back down, he looked shaken. He didn't meet anyone's eyes. He went straight to his office and closed the door. Jennifer tried to get gossip from Robert's assistant, but got nothing. Sarah speculated in whispers. David just worked, but he caught my eye across the office and raised one eyebrow slightly. He was starting to figure it out. Week 13, Marcus started being nice to me. Suddenly I wasn't intern Emma anymore. I was Emma or even Ms. Riley when he was feeling particularly nervous. He asked my opinion on things. He invited me to meetings. He made sure I had the resources I needed. It was pathetic and transparent and entirely too late. Because I'd already documented everything. I had a file 3 inches thick, metaphorically speaking, of every misdeed, every theft, every act of cruelty. Names, dates, witnesses, evidence. And Uncle Robert had started asking me questions during our weekly calls. Careful questions about team dynamics, about leadership styles, about who I thought had real potential and who was coasting on charm and connections. I told him the truth. All of it. Clinically, professionally, without emotion or exaggeration. I reported facts the way you'd report data, because that's what he'd asked for. He listened. He always just listened. For more weeks, he said at the end of one call. Can you make it 4 more weeks? I can make it as long as necessary, I said. 4 weeks, he repeated. Trust me. I trusted him. Those 4 weeks were the strangest of the entire experience. Marcus treated me like fragile glass. Sarah stopped her accidents. Jennifer actually said good morning to me. The entire toxic dynamic had shifted, recalibrated, because they sensed something changing but couldn't identify what. David started having lunch with me sometimes. Just casual conversations in the break room or the sandwich shop downstairs. He didn't ask direct questions, but he was clearly curious. You're different than when you started, he said one afternoon, watching me over his turkey club. How so? More confident. Less afraid. Was I afraid? I asked. Weren't you? I thought about it. No, I said honestly. I was never afraid. I was angry. He nodded slowly. That makes more sense. Fear would have driven you out by now. Anger. He smiled slightly. Anger makes you stay. Makes you want to prove something. What do you think I'm trying to prove? That you belong here. That you're better than they think. That underestimating you was the biggest mistake they ever made. I looked at him carefully. David was maybe 30, with tired eyes and careful hands and the kind of quiet competence that got overlooked in favor of flashier personalities. He'd been with Henderson Associates for 5 years, and he'd probably stay until retirement unless something changed. Why did you stay? I asked. After you figured out what this place was really like? He shrugged. Mortgage. Kids' college fund. Health insurance. All the boring reasons people stay in jobs they don't love. But you. He pointed at me with a pickle spear. You're here for a different reason. You're not trapped. You're waiting. For what? I don't know yet. But I'm interested to find out. I liked David. He was probably the only person in the entire office I'd miss when this was over. Week 17 arrived with the weight of an ending. On Monday morning, Uncle Robert sent out a company-wide email announcing an all-hands meeting for Friday afternoon. Mandatory attendance. No exceptions. Important announcement regarding organizational restructuring. The office went insane with speculation. Jennifer's gossip network went into overdrive. Sarah started panic updating her resume. Marcus spent 3 days locked in his office, making frantic phone calls. I just worked. I finished the projects I'd been assigned. I organized files. I made coffee. I was helpful, pleasant, invisible intern Emma right up until the last possible moment. Friday arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that usually follows storms. The air felt different. Charged. Like the whole building was holding its breath. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. in the main conference hall. Everyone gathered, all 140 employees from every department, crowding into chairs and standing along the walls. There was nervous laughter, whispered speculation, the crackle of anticipation that comes before major change. Uncle Robert walked in at exactly 3. He looked like what he was, a man who'd built an empire through intelligence, integrity, and iron will. 62 years old, steel-gray hair, suit that probably cost more than my car, and eyes that missed nothing. "Thank you all for coming," he started, voice carrying easily through the room. "I'll keep this brief because I know everyone's anxious. Henderson Associates has grown significantly over the past decade. We've tripled our revenue, expanded into new markets, and built a reputation for excellence." Nods around the room. People relaxed slightly. This sounded like a pep talk, not a massacre. "But growth reveals cracks," Robert continued. "It exposes weaknesses in leadership, gaps in our culture, places where we've tolerated mediocrity or worse. Over the past 4 months, I've been conducting a comprehensive review of our operations, our team dynamics, and our leadership effectiveness." The room got quieter. Jennifer's face had gone pale. Marcus was staring at his hands. "I've made some decisions about restructuring," Robert said. "Effective immediately, several positions are being eliminated or reassigned. Marcus Holloway, please see HR after this meeting. Sarah Chen, same. Jennifer Watts, same." 3 gasps. Marcus actually stood up, face red. "Robert, I've been with this company for 7 years, and you've spent most of that time taking credit for other people's work, creating a toxic work environment, and coasting on charm instead of competence. We'll discuss the details privately, but your time in a leadership position here is over." Marcus sat down hard, like someone had cut his strings. Sarah looked stunned. Jennifer was crying, actual tears rolling down her face. David caught my eye from across the room. His expression said, "I knew you were waiting for something." "We're also making some promotions," Robert continued, voice warming slightly. "David Chen, you're being moved to Senior Operations Manager with immediate effect. You've been carrying that department for years. Now you'll have the title and salary to match." David blinked. Then slowly smiled. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. You earned it." Robert's eyes scanned the room and landed on me. "We're also creating a new position, Director of Strategic Development. This person will work directly with me to identify growth opportunities, develop innovative strategies, and rebuild our internal culture into something worth being proud of." My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. This position requires someone who understands our business from the ground up. Someone who's proven they can work harder than anyone else. Someone with fresh ideas and the determination to see them through. Someone who's earned respect through competence rather than demanded it through intimidation. The room was dead silent now. Everyone waiting. "Emma Riley, please stand up." I stood. My legs were shaking but my hands were steady. Emma has spent the past 4 months working as an intern in our consulting division. What most of you don't know is that Emma is my niece. I asked her to come in at the entry level, to experience this company the way any new hire would experience it. No special treatment. No shortcuts. Just hard work and observation. You could hear people's shock in the quality of the silence. Marcus made a sound like he'd been punched. Emma documented everything she saw, Robert continued. The good and the bad. Who actually worked and who just looked busy. Who helped and who hindered. Who created value and who just extracted it. Her reports were detailed, professional, and damning. They confirmed what I'd suspected, that we had a significant culture problem in several departments. Emma's going to help me fix that. She'll be starting her new role on Monday as Director of Strategic Development, reporting directly to me. Her first project will be implementing the Patterson proposal, the real one, not the incomplete version that was presented to them. He looked at Marcus. The proposal you stole from her desk and presented as your own work. Patterson called yesterday. They were impressed with the supplementary research they saw, the methodology, the depth of analysis. They want to move forward. With Emma leading the account. Marcus looked like he might vomit. Robert turned back to the room. That's all. Department heads, please see me individually this week. Emma, my office in 30 minutes. Everyone else, thank you for your time. The meeting dissolved into chaos. People talking over each other, shocked conversations, Jennifer still crying, Sarah staring at nothing, Marcus storming out with his face red and his fists clenched. David made his way over to me through the crowd. Congratulations, Director Riley, he said with a genuine smile. Thank you. And congratulations yourself, Senior Manager Chen. I had a feeling something like this was coming. Not exactly this, but... He shook his head. You're tougher than you look. I'm exactly as tough as I look. People just weren't looking very carefully. He laughed. Fair point. I'm looking forward to working with you. Actually working with you, I mean. As colleagues. Same. You were one of the only decent people in that department. Keyword, were. Marcus is gone. Sarah's gone. Jennifer's gone. We can rebuild it into something better now. He paused. That's what you're here for, isn't it? Not just to take a position. To actually make it better. That's exactly what I'm here for. 30 minutes later, I sat in Uncle Robert's office, the same office I'd visited 100 times as a kid, when it was smaller and the furniture was cheaper and the view was of a parking lot instead of the city skyline. You did well, he said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey even though it was barely 3:30. Better than I expected, honestly. I thought you might break around week 6. I almost did, I admitted. Day 33, when Marcus presented my proposal as his own work. That nearly broke me. But it didn't. You want to know why? Why? Because you were angrier at yourself for almost breaking than you were at him for stealing. That's when I knew you had what it takes. I sipped the whiskey. It burned going down, expensive and smooth. Was it worth it? The 4 months of humiliation? Robert leaned back in his chair, considering. You tell me. Do you understand this company now? Really understand it? Not just the numbers and the client lists, but the people, the dynamics, the difference between leadership and authority? I thought about Marcus, all bluster and stolen ideas. About Sarah's efficiency wrapped in cruelty. About Jennifer collecting secrets like weapons. About David's quiet competence going unrecognized for years. About the 100 small interactions that taught me more about human nature than any MBA program could. Yes, I said. I understand it. And do you think you can fix what's broken here? Not fix. Transform. Fixing implies putting it back how it was. I'm going to make it into something better than it's ever been. He smiled. It was the same smile he'd given me when I was 12 and told him I wanted to run a company someday. Proud and challenging and absolutely certain I'd make it happen. That's my girl. Now, about the Patterson account. They want a presentation Monday morning. 8 a.m. Your first official act as Director of Strategic Development. Think you're ready? I finished my whiskey and set down the glass. I've been ready since day 1. I was just waiting for everyone else to catch up. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. I worked from home, turning my incomplete Patterson proposal into the comprehensive strategy I'd always envisioned. 47 pages of detailed analysis, innovative approaches, realistic timelines, and projected outcomes that would revolutionize how Henderson Associates handled tech sector clients. I barely slept. Didn't need to. The adrenaline of finally, being able to use my actual skills instead of hiding them kept me wired and focused. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 6 a.m. Not because I had to anymore, but because old habits die hard and I wanted time to set up the conference room exactly right. David was already there. He'd brought coffee. "Figured you'd be here early," he said, handing me a cup. "Wanted to wish you luck. Not that you need it." "Thanks. And thank you for being decent to me these past months. It mattered more than you know. Just treating you like a human being. That shouldn't be remarkable, but..." He shrugged. "Anyway. I'm rooting for you. We all are, the people who are left, I mean. The ones who actually give a damn about doing good work." The Patterson executives arrived at 7:45. Teresa Chen and 3 colleagues, all sharp-eyed and skeptical. They remembered the disaster of Marcus's presentation, and they weren't inclined to be generous. Uncle Robert made introductions. "This is Emma Riley, our new Director of Strategic Development. She'll be walking you through the revised proposal." Teresa's eyes sharpened. "You're the intern from the last meeting." I said calmly. "I'm not anymore." "Shall we begin?" I gave the best presentation of my life. Every slide was precise. Every answer was confident. Every question they threw at me, I'd already anticipated and prepared for. I spoke their language, not the corporate buzzword nonsense Marcus had relied on, but the real language of business: numbers, timelines, risks, rewards, realistic expectations. I showed them exactly how Henderson Associates could triple their operational efficiency within 18 months. I outlined the methodologies, the milestones, the metrics we'd use to measure success. I addressed every concern before they could voice it. By the time I finished, Teresa Chen was smiling. "This is what we wanted to see the first time," she said. "This is comprehensive, realistic, and honestly quite brilliant. The innovation in your approach to scalable integration alone is worth the consulting fee." One of her colleagues nodded. "The risk mitigation strategies are particularly impressive. You've clearly thought through every potential obstacle." "That's my job," I said simply. "To think 5 steps ahead and make sure we're prepared for whatever comes." They signed the contract that afternoon. $12 million over 3 years. The biggest account Henderson Associates had landed in 18 months. Uncle Robert shook my hand in his office afterward. "You just earned your salary for the next decade. Well done." "We're not done," I said. "This was one account. I want to transform how we operate across the board. I have ideas, I know you do. Write them up. We'll discuss them in tomorrow's leadership meeting." He paused. "Emma, you know some people are going to resent you. Resent that you're my niece, that you got this position at 23, that you skipped over people who've been here longer. Let them resent me. I'll prove myself with results, not seniority." "Just like your old man," he said softly. "My father, Robert's brother, had died when I was 19. Heart attack at 47, burned out from a corporate job he hated, too stressed to take care of himself. It's part of why I'd been so determined to build a career I actually cared about, in a place where competence mattered more than politics." "Better than him," I said. "He never learned to fight for what he wanted." I did. The next few weeks were intense. I overhauled the consulting division's entire approach to client relations. I implemented new training programs focused on collaboration instead of competition. I promoted people based on merit, like David, and let go of people who thrived on toxicity. Marcus tried to sue for wrongful termination. The lawsuit went nowhere because we had documentation of every theft, every instance of taking credit for others' work, every complaint that HR had ignored because Marcus was a top performer. He settled quietly and took a job with a competitor at half his previous salary. Sarah found work at another firm. I heard later she'd mellowed, that losing her position had humbled her. I hoped it was true. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Jennifer left the industry entirely. Last I heard, she was managing a yoga studio in Colorado, far away from the corporate world she'd poisoned. The people who stayed, the good ones, the ones who actually cared about excellence, they flourished. We built something real. A culture where hard work mattered more than politics, where innovation was rewarded instead of punished, where you could succeed without destroying someone else. 6 months into my role as Director of Strategic Development, Uncle Robert called me into his office. "I'm announcing my retirement," he said without preamble. "End of the fiscal year. I'll stay on as chairman, but I'm stepping back from daily operations." My heart stopped. "Robert, the board needs to approve my successor, but I'm recommending you for CEO. You're young, but you've proven yourself. The Patterson account alone brought in enough revenue to justify the promotion, and everything else you've done, the culture change, the new client acquisition, the operational improvements, it's all documented and impressive." "I'm 23, I said faintly. "The board will never approve that. The board will approve what I recommend. And if they don't, I still control 49% of the company. I'll make it happen either way." "But Emma." He fixed me with that steel gray gaze. "This isn't a gift. It's an opportunity. You'll have to fight for it. Prove it wasn't nepotism. Show everyone, inside and outside this company, that you earned it. Can you do that?" I thought about those 4 months as an intern. The humiliation, the stolen work, the casual cruelty. The anger I'd transmuted into determination. The lessons I'd learned about leadership, about resilience, about exactly how strong I actually was. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." 3 months later, the board approved my appointment as CEO of Henderson Associates. I was 24 years old. The youngest CEO in the company's history. The youngest female CEO in the entire consulting industry. The press had a field day. Some articles were positive, young visionary takes the helm. Others were skeptical, nepotism or merit. Henderson's controversial appointment. A few were outright hostile, girl boss or just the boss's girl. I didn't read them. Didn't care. I had work to do. My first act as CEO was to implement a company-wide mentorship program, not the fake kind where senior people pretend to care, but real mentorship with accountability measures and performance metrics. If you were going to lead at Henderson Associates, you had to prove you could develop talent, not just exploit it. My second act was to overhaul compensation. I tied executive bonuses directly to team performance and employee satisfaction scores. If your department was thriving and your people were happy, you got rewarded. If you were hitting numbers by burning people out or stealing their work, you got nothing. The old guard hated it. 3 senior consultants quit within the first month, claiming I was ruining the competitive culture that made Henderson great. Good. Let them leave. We replaced them with hungry, talented people who understood that competition should elevate everyone, not destroy the person next to you. David became my chief operating officer within the year. He'd earned it 10 times over, and he brought the same quiet competence to the executive level that he'd shown in the trenches. "Never thought I'd be here," he admitted one late night when we were reviewing quarterly projections. 5 years ago, I was just trying to keep my head down and survive until retirement. "That's what they wanted," I said. "People like Marcus, like Sarah, like the entire toxic system. They wanted everyone scared and small, so they could feel big by comparison. We're building something different now." "Yeah." He smiled. "We really are." The Patterson account became a case study. Our innovative approach worked even better than projected. their operational efficiency increased by 240% in the first year. Teresa Chen referred us to 3 other tech companies. Then those companies referred us to others. Within 18 months, our tech sector consulting had grown by 400%. We had to hire 50 new people just to keep up with demand. And I made sure every single new hire went through the same entry-level experience I had. Not the humiliation and theft, that culture was dead and buried, but the understanding of how the company actually worked from the bottom up. You want to lead here? I told new consultants on their first day. Then you need to understand every role, every challenge, every perspective. You'll spend your first month rotating through departments. You'll shadow assistants and analysts and operations staff. You'll learn that leadership isn't about titles, it's about understanding the people who make everything possible. Some of them complained. The ones from prestigious MBA programs, the ones who thought they should start at the top because of their credentials. Those ones usually didn't last long. The ones who thrived were the ones who understood what I'd learned in those 4 brutal months, that real strength comes from endurance, real leadership comes from service, and real success comes from lifting others up instead of climbing over their backs. 2 years into my tenure as CEO, Henderson Associates won Industry Excellence Awards in 3 categories: innovation, workplace culture, and client satisfaction. We were profiled in Forbes, Fast Company, and the Wall Street Journal. In every interview, reporters asked the same question: how did you transform a traditional consulting firm so quickly? I always gave the same answer: I spent 4 months learning exactly what was broken, and then I had the authority to fix it. Change isn't complicated. It just requires honesty about what's wrong and commitment to making it right. What I didn't tell them, what I couldn't explain in a soundbite, was the personal cost. The nights I still woke up angry, remembering Marcus's smug face as he presented my work. The way I still flinched sometimes when someone called me by my first name, expecting it to be followed by mockery. The deep-seated need to prove myself over and over, to earn my position 1,000 times even though I'd already earned it. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you succeed. It just becomes part of your foundation, the bedrock you build on, the fuel you burn when things get hard. 3 years in, Uncle Robert officially retired from the board. His goodbye party was lavish and emotional. He gave a speech about building legacies and passing torches and trusting the next generation. Afterward, in a quiet moment, he pulled me aside. "Proud of you, kid," he said simply. "Your father would be proud too." "I wish he could see it," I said, and was surprised to feel tears burning behind my eyes. I so rarely cried anymore. Hadn't cried since those early days, when anger was the only thing keeping me together. "He sees it," Robert said with certainty. "And he knows you succeeded by being better than him, braver than him, stronger than him. That's what good parents want, for their kids to surpass them." He got that, even if he didn't live to see it happen. I hugged him then, this man who'd believed in me enough to let me suffer, who'd trusted me enough to let me fight my own battles, who'd loved me enough to make me earn what he could have simply given. "Thank you," I whispered. "For the opportunity. For the hell you put me through. For everything. You did it yourself," he said firmly. "I just opened the door. You walked through it." Year 4 brought new challenges. A competitor tried to poach our entire tech division with massive salary offers. It was a crisis. We stood to lose 40% of our revenue if they succeeded. I called an all-hands meeting. Laid out the situation honestly. Told everyone exactly what the competitor was offering and why it was tempting. "Here's what I can promise you," I said to the assembled company. "I can't match those salaries dollar for dollar. What I can offer is equity. Real ownership in what we're building. A share of our success, not just a paycheck. I can offer you a voice in company direction. I can offer you a workplace where your ideas matter, where your contributions are recognized, where you won't spend years being invisible while someone else takes credit for your work." I paused, looking around at faces I'd come to know, people I'd hired or promoted or fought alongside. Some of you will leave. I understand that. Family obligations, financial pressures, sometimes the money matters more than the mission. But for those of you who stay, I promise you this, we're going to build something extraordinary. Not just a successful company, but a place you're proud to work. A place where you can grow, fail, learn, and succeed without sacrificing your humanity or your ethics. 15 people left. 40 stayed. And the 40 who stayed worked like they had something to prove, because they did. They were proving that culture mattered more than compensation, that belonging was worth more than bonuses, that building something meaningful was worth more than maximizing a paycheck. We not only survived the poaching attempt, we thrived. The people who stayed became more invested, more committed, more innovative. They brought ideas I never would have thought of. They caught problems I would have missed. They made Henderson Associates better than I could have made it alone. That's when I truly understood what Uncle Robert had tried to teach me. Leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about creating a room where smart people can do their best work. Year 5, I got invited to speak at my alma mater's business school. The same program I'd graduated from at 22, top of my class, full of ambition and naive certainty that competence would be enough. I stood in front of 200 bright-eyed students and told them the truth. You're going to face people who underestimate you, I said. People who will steal your work. People who will mock your mistakes and ignore your successes. People who will try to break you because they're threatened by you. The auditorium was silent. This wasn't the inspirational pep talk they'd expected. And here's what I want you to know, let them underestimate you. Let them think you're small, insignificant, temporary. Let them ignore you while you're learning everything about them. Because the person everyone underestimates is the most dangerous person in the room. I smiled then, remembering intern Emma with her coffee tray and her burning rage and her absolute certainty that she would outlast them all. I spent 4 months being invisible in my own uncle's company. 4 months being mocked, dismissed, having my work stolen. And I used every single second of that time to document, learn, prepare. By the time they realized I wasn't just an intern, it was too late. I knew everything. I had evidence of everything. And I had the skills and determination to not just succeed, but to transform the entire company. A hand shot up. But isn't that? I mean, wasn't it unfair? Using your family connection like that? Yes, I said bluntly. It was absolutely unfair. Life is unfair. The question is, what do you do with unfair advantages when you have them? Do you coast on them, demand respect you haven't earned, use them to avoid challenges? Or do you use them as opportunities to prove yourself beyond any doubt? I gestured to the room. Every single one of you has some kind of advantage. Maybe it's not a family connection. Maybe it's your education, your intelligence, your work ethic, your ability to charm people, your technical skills. Something. And you also have disadvantages, things that will make your path harder. The trick is to acknowledge both without letting either define you. Another student raised her hand. What if we don't have connections? What if we're starting from nothing? Then you do what I would have done if I hadn't had my uncle's company, I said. You work harder than everyone else. You document everything. You make yourself invaluable. You learn not just your job, but everyone else's job too. You become the person they can't function without. And then, when the opportunity comes, because it will come, you're ready. I left campus that day feeling something I hadn't felt in years, peace. Not satisfaction, I'd never be satisfied, would always want to build more, grow more, prove more. But peace with the journey. Peace with the version of myself who'd served coffee and swallowed humiliation. Peace with the anger that had fueled me and the determination that had sustained me. That version of Emma, scared, furious, invisible Emma, she wasn't someone I'd left behind. She was someone I'd built on. the foundation of everything I'd become. Year 6 brought the biggest challenge yet, a merger opportunity with a firm 3 times our size. If we accepted, Henderson Associates would cease to exist as an independent company. We'd become a division of something larger. The board was divided. Half saw it as a natural evolution, take the money, cash out, let someone else handle the complexity of continued growth. Half saw it as surrender, abandoning the culture we'd built for short-term profit. I spent 3 weeks analyzing the offer, running projections, interviewing executives from the other firm. And the more I learned, the more I saw echoes of the old Henderson Associates. The toxic culture I'd worked so hard to dismantle. The politics over performance. The fear-based leadership. I called a board meeting and laid out my recommendation: reject the merger. The money is tempting, I acknowledged. The growth potential is real. But we'd be absorbed into a culture that contradicts everything we've built. Within 2 years, the good people we've developed would leave. The innovation would stagnate. We'd become just another corporate consulting firm grinding through employees and maximizing quarterly returns. One of the board members, a venture capitalist who'd invested early, shook his head. You're being naive, Emma. This is $100 million offer. You're talking about turning down generational wealth for, what? Company culture? Yes, I said simply. Because company culture is what generates sustainable value. It's what attracts the best talent. It's what drives innovation and client loyalty. It's what makes people willing to work nights and weekends not because they're forced to, but because they believe in what we're building. That's idealistic nonsense, he said flatly. In 10 years, you'll regret this decision. I looked around the table. Some faces supportive, some skeptical, some calculating the personal cost of my idealism. Maybe I will, I said. But I'd rather regret protecting something I believe in than regret selling it out. We vote in 5 minutes. Think carefully about what you want Henderson Associates to become. The vote was 7-4 in favor of rejecting the merger. The venture capitalist and 3 others voted to accept. They sold their shares within the month, cashing out at the highest valuation we'd achieved. I bought back their shares personally. It cost me nearly everything I'd saved, left me cash poor and investment rich, tied my personal fortune directly to the company's success or failure. David thought I was crazy. You just turned down $100 million and then spent your savings buying out investors. You know that's insane, right? It's only insane if we fail, I said. And if we fail, you're broke. Then I better make sure we don't fail. We didn't fail. Within 18 months, Henderson Associates had grown to match the size of the firm that had tried to acquire us. Our revenue hit $500 million. Our employee satisfaction scores were the highest in the industry. Our client retention rate was 97%. And the firm that had tried to acquire us? They were embroiled in scandal, sexual harassment lawsuits, accounting irregularities, a toxic culture that had finally made headlines. Their stock price collapsed. Their reputation was destroyed. I thought about that board meeting, about the venture capitalist who'd called my decision idealistic nonsense. About how close we'd come to being absorbed into that disaster. Sometimes naivety is just seeing clearly what cynics have given up on, that how you build matters as much as what you build. That culture isn't a luxury, it's the foundation everything else rests on. That short-term profit at the cost of long-term integrity is just a slower form of failure. Year 7 brought personal changes. I met someone, another entrepreneur, someone who understood the all-consuming nature of building something from scratch. Someone who didn't need me to be anyone other than exactly who I was. We got married in a small ceremony. Uncle Robert walked me down the aisle. David was there, and Teresa Chen from Patterson Tech, and a dozen other people who'd been part of the journey. No one from my first 4 months at Henderson Associates. Marcus, Sarah, Jennifer, they were distant memories now. footnotes in a story that had grown so much larger than their small cruelties. But I thought about them sometimes. Wondered if they'd learned anything. Hoped they had, but didn't need to know. The best revenge, I'd learned, isn't destruction. It's building something so successful, so meaningful, so excellent that their absence is irrelevant. They become part of the before, the broken version that needed fixing. And you become the after, the proof that better was always possible. Year 8, I gave another talk. Not at a business school this time, but at a leadership conference. Thousands of executives and entrepreneurs, all looking for the secret to success. There is no secret, I told them. There's only work, and honesty, and the willingness to endure what needs to be endured. There's documenting what's broken instead of pretending it's fine. There's promoting people who lift others up instead of people who climb over others. There's choosing sustainable culture over short-term profit, even when everyone tells you you're being naive. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. And sometimes, there's being willing to be underestimated. To be invisible while you learn. To let people dismiss you while you're gathering the knowledge and skills that will eventually make you unstoppable. After the talk, a young woman approached me. Early 20s, nervous energy, eyes burning with the same determination I remembered from my own reflection. I'm an intern at a consulting firm, she said quietly. They treat me exactly how you described. Coffee runs, copying, stolen work, casual cruelty. I want to quit every single day. So why don't you? I asked. Because I made myself a promise. I'm going to outlast them. I'm going to learn everything. And someday, I'm going to transform that company or build something better. Just like you did. I looked at her, this fierce, furious, determined young woman, and I saw myself at 23. I saw intern Emma with her coffee tray and her burning rage and her absolute certainty that she was worth more than their dismissal. What's your name? I asked. Sophia. Sophia, here's what I want you to know, you will outlast them. Not because you're smarter or tougher or more deserving, but because you're willing to use the pain as fuel instead of letting it break you. But you need to document everything. Every theft, every instance of credit stealing, every toxic behavior. Build your case while you're building your skills. And when your moment comes, and it will come, be ready. She nodded, blinking back tears. How long did it take? Before your moment came? 4 months of hell. 5 years of hard work. 8 years of proving myself over and over. And I'm still not done. I'll probably never be done. But every single day, I get to build something I believe in, with people I respect, in a way that makes the world slightly less toxic. That's worth every coffee run, every stolen idea, every moment of being underestimated. I gave her my card. Email me in 6 months. Tell me how you're doing. And if you need advice or a reference or just someone who understands, I'm here. She took the card like it was made of gold. Thank you, she whispered. For being honest. For not pretending it was easy. It wasn't easy, I said. It was brutal. But it was worth it. And you're worth it. Don't forget that on the hard days. She left, and I watched her go, and I hoped she'd remember this conversation when she was exhausted and angry and ready to quit. I hoped she'd remember that someone had survived what she was surviving. That the path from intern to impact was real, even when it felt impossible. Year 9, Henderson Associates hit $1 billion in valuation. We'd grown from 140 employees to over 600. We had offices in 12 cities. We'd been named one of the best places to work in America 3 years running. Uncle Robert called me from his retirement home in Arizona. Saw the valuation announcement, he said. Proud doesn't even begin to cover it. None of this happens without you, I said. Without you giving me the chance, making me earn it. Stop, he interrupted. I gave you an opportunity. A brutal, unfair, character testing opportunity. But everything you did with it, that was you. Own your success, Emma. You earned every bit of it. I had advantages, everyone has advantages. Not everyone has the courage to endure what you endured, the wisdom to learn what you learned, the integrity to build what you built. Take the compliment. You've earned that too. I sat in my office, the same office Uncle Robert had occupied for 30 years, and I let myself feel it. The pride. The satisfaction. The deep, bone-deep certainty that I'd done exactly what I set out to do. I'd survived the underestimation. I'd documented the dysfunction. I'd waited for my moment. And when it came, I'd transformed not just my own position, but an entire company culture. I'd proven that leadership could be excellent without being cruel, that success could be sustainable without being exploitative, that building something meaningful was worth more than any shortcut. I thought about Marcus sometimes. About how different things might have been if he'd chosen mentorship over mockery, collaboration over credit stealing. He'd had every advantage, experience, connections, established reputation. And he'd squandered it all on petty power games and stolen ideas. I'd started with nothing but determination and a family connection I refused to use as a shortcut. And I'd built an empire. Not because I was smarter than him. But because I understood something he never learned, that real power comes from empowering others. That real success is measured not in quarterly bonuses but in the people you develop, the culture you build, the legacy you leave. Year 10 brought full-circle moments. The business school I'd graduated from asked me to join their advisory board. The Consulting Industry Association gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award, at 33, the youngest recipient in their history. And Patterson Tech, the account that had started everything, the proposal Marcus had stolen and I'd reclaimed, they promoted Teresa Chen to CEO. Her first call was to me. I learned from watching you, she said. How you transformed Henderson Associates, how you prioritized culture and people and sustainable growth. I want to do the same thing at Patterson. Will you consult? Officially or unofficially? Both. I'll pay Henderson's consulting rates. But I also want your honest advice. The kind you can only give someone who's been in the trenches. I thought about it. About how far I'd come from intern Emma with her coffee tray and burning rage. About how that experience had forged me into someone worth consulting, someone whose opinion carried weight, someone who'd earned respect through competence and character. Yes, I said. On one condition. Name it. When you transform Patterson's culture, when you build something better, I want you to hire from the bottom up sometimes. Find the interns, the assistants, the people everyone underestimates. Give them chances. Make them earn those chances, but give them the opportunity to prove themselves. Teresa was quiet for a moment. You're talking about what you went through. I'm talking about what built me. The humiliation, the theft, the invisibility, it was brutal. But it taught me everything I needed to know about leadership, about resilience, about the difference between authority and respect. I wouldn't be who I am without it. You'd do it again? Knowing how hard it was? I thought about those 4 months. The anger, the exhaustion, the nights I'd cried from frustration and rage. The stolen work, the casual cruelty, the grinding daily humiliation. Yes, I said without hesitation. I'd do it again. Because it taught me that I'm stronger than their cruelty, smarter than their games, and more determined than they ever imagined. It taught me that being underestimated is an advantage if you're patient enough to use it. And it taught me exactly the kind of leader I never want to be. Which is the kind who mistakes authority for competence. Who steals instead of builds. Who tears down instead of lifts up. Who measures success in personal glory instead of collective growth. I spent 4 months watching that kind of leadership destroy people. Now I've spent 10 years proving we can do better. Teresa laughed softly. Henderson Associates is lucky to have you. No, I said. I'm lucky to have Henderson Associates. It gave me a chance when I was just a furious intern with a point to prove. Now I get to give other people the same chance. That's not luck. That's legacy. We ended the call, and I sat in my office as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in oranges and purples and deep blues. I thought about where I'd been, invisible, mocked, systematically underestimated. And where I was now, a CEO, industry leader, someone whose opinion shaped how businesses operated. The journey from there to here wasn't a straight line. It was a brutal, winding path through humiliation and anger and grinding determination. It was coffee trays and stolen proposals and nights I'd cried from exhaustion. It was documenting dysfunction and waiting for my moment and refusing to break even when breaking would have been easier. But it was also friendship with people like David who'd seen me when I was invisible. It was the satisfaction of proving every doubter wrong. It was the deep, bone-deep pride of building something excellent, something sustainable, something that made people's lives better instead of worse. If I could go back and tell intern Emma anything, that furious, terrified young woman with her coffee tray and her burning determination, I'd tell her this: they're going to mock you. They're going to steal from you. They're going to try to break you in 1,000 small ways. Let them try. Because every moment of humiliation is teaching you something they're too arrogant to learn. Every stolen idea is proof of your value. Every attempt to make you small is evidence of how much they fear you becoming large. Document everything. Learn everything. Wait for your moment. And when it comes, when they finally realize they've been underestimating a force of nature, show them exactly what you're capable of. Not with cruelty. Not with revenge. With excellence. With leadership. With the kind of culture they could have built but chose not to. You're going to make it. Not just survive, but thrive. Not just succeed, but transform. And 10 years from now, when you're sitting in the corner office you earned, you'll look back at this moment and understand, being underestimated was the greatest gift they ever gave you. Because the person everyone underestimates is the most dangerous person in the room. They're gathering intelligence while you're gathering glory. They're building skills while you're building ego. And when the moment comes, when competence finally outweighs connections, when substance finally outweighs style, they'll be ready and you won't. So let them mock you, intern Emma. Let them steal your work and take your credit and treat you like you're invisible. Because you're not invisible. You're gathering evidence. Learning patterns. Building an unshakable foundation of knowledge and skill and determination. And when your moment comes, you won't just take what's yours. You'll transform everything. I stood and looked out at the city lights, at the empire I'd built from humiliation and rage and unbreakable will. Somewhere out there, another young woman was serving coffee, swallowing mockery, documenting dysfunction. Another Sophia or another Emma, making herself invisible while she became unstoppable. I hoped she knew what I'd learned, that being underestimated isn't weakness. It's strategic advantage. It's information gathering. It's the difference between those who demand respect and those who earn it so thoroughly that demanding becomes unnecessary. They mocked me as just an intern. They laughed when I made mistakes. They stole my work and dismissed my worth and tried to make me small enough to ignore. But I wasn't an intern. I was an intelligence agent in enemy territory, gathering evidence for a revolution they never saw coming. I wasn't making mistakes. I was learning lessons they were too arrogant to teach on purpose. I wasn't small. I was compressed potential, coiled energy, a force waiting for the perfect moment to spring. And when that moment came, when I walked into that meeting as their new boss, when their smiles vanished and their certainty crumbled, I didn't gloat. I didn't mock them the way they'd mocked me. I simply showed them what excellence looks like. What real leadership means. What you can build when you choose collaboration over cruelty, culture over shortcuts, sustainable success over temporary glory. That was 10 years ago. The empire I've built since then isn't measured in dollars, though there are plenty of those. It's measured in people developed, culture transformed, lives improved. It's measured in young women like Sophia who email me from their own internship hells, asking if they'll make it, needing to hear that someone else survived and thrived. I always write back the same thing, you'll make it. Not because it's easy, but because you're stronger than their cruelty. Document everything. Learn everything. Wait for your moment. And when it comes, show them what they should have seen all along, that underestimating you was the biggest mistake they ever made. That's my legacy. Not the billion-dollar valuation or the industry awards or the magazine profiles. It's the knowledge that somewhere out there, young professionals are enduring their own hells, gathering their own evidence, building their own foundations of unbreakable determination. And when their moments come, when they walk into their own meetings as the new boss, when the people who mocked them realize their mistake too late, they'll remember that someone else did it first. They'll remember intern Emma, who served coffee with a smile and rage in her heart, who documented dysfunction while everyone thought she was just taking notes, who waited for her moment with the patience of someone who knows revenge is a dish best served successful. They'll remember that being underestimated isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning. The origin point. The moment when you decide whether you'll let their smallness make you small, or whether you'll use their blindness to become something they never imagined possible. I chose the second option. I became something they never imagined. Not their boss, that was just a title, just a moment. I became someone who transformed how business works, who proved culture matters more than quarterly returns, who showed that excellence and ethics aren't opposites but partners. I became someone worth becoming. Not despite the humiliation, but because of it. Because every moment of being underestimated taught me something about strength, resilience, determination, and the difference between authority you demand and respect you earn. So to everyone out there serving coffee when they should be leading teams, to everyone getting their work stolen by people who should be learning from them, to everyone being mocked and dismissed and systematically underestimated, your moment is coming. Keep documenting. Keep learning. Keep building yourself into something unstoppable while they're building their egos on stolen foundations. And when your moment arrives, and it will arrive, show them exactly what they should have seen all along, that underestimating you wasn't just their mistake. It was your greatest advantage.